Good afternoon. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to this live stream from Alert Logic. So a little while ago, we published the Inside Alert Logic series of videos with some individuals from different roles. And those videos were produced in our SOC in Cardiff and Houston with film crew, professional audio and lighting, all those kind of things. This live stream is somewhat a continuation of that, albeit with a bit of a different level of production, but you can find those videos on this YouTube channel as well. You should be able to see an opportunity to chat within the YouTube window. So as we go along, if you've got any questions or anything you want to ask the folks on this sort of open meeting, as it were, please do ask, and we'll do our best to answer those. So basically, we've invited some key people who work in our UK business to discuss the current situation and how they're managing things and how it's impacted their day-to-day working patterns for them and their staff. So I'm going to just start with a round of introductions. We've got Andrew Gittins, who's our deployment manager. Andrew's team ensures that new and existing customers are able to deploy our solutions and are enabled to maintain the health of their deployments. So they make sure that we've got visibility into their environments to detect threats, which is really important. And Andrew's been here for about 6 years. Next, we've got Tim Pope. So one of the newest members of the Alert Logic team on the call. Tim's 2 months in. So Tim is Director of Customer Success and manages our MDR concierge team, and he provides a single point of contact for our customers. So whilst Andrew's team are bringing new customers on board, Tim's team engages and works with them to make sure that service delivery continues. Stefan Jones is our UK SOC manager.
Hi, everyone.
He's been here around 4.5 years, and Stefan can normally be found walking the floor in our security operations centre, making sure that all the people that triage the incidents and take things in and make sure our customers are aware of what's going on have got everything they need. Stefan's been here around 4.5 years, about the same time as I have, and he'll be talking obviously about that side of things. So as well, we've got Phil Thomas.
Hello.
Phil is our Director of Security Operations for support. He's been here around the same time as Stefan. Phil manages teams with equally numerous disciplines, providing 24/7 platform and service support to our customers, so critical. And last but by no means least, we've got Ellie Lancaster.
Hi.
She's our People Experience Manager, so Ellie provides mentorship, guidance, and a shoulder to lean on for all our Alert Logic employees, and especially those based in the UK where we're all located. So we've got a few subjects today we're going to talk around. First one we're going to talk to, which is natural, obviously, given the current climate and the things that everyone's going through, is the sort of human factor. I know we've all got lots to talk about. We're going to sort of try and take it in turns, try and keep things a little orderly. But Ellie, I'm sure you've got a lot to talk to around this subject. Have you got anything you want to pitch in on the human factor for our people?
Yeah, certainly. So it's obviously been quite an interesting time as of late. We've had various challenges to overcome. Obviously, moving our entire workforce remote outside of our offices has been kind of the first challenge, and getting everybody to get set up in a working environment at home that works for them both kind of practically, so they can get the best of their work done and make sure they're working with their managers closely. But some of the things that are important for like my team to make sure that are being checked on is that their health and well-being is kind of foremost, and that they're keeping themselves safe. So we've had like lots of conversations with managers and employees about getting an appropriate workstation set up so that they're not just sat in bed or on the sofa. They've got like a proper work environment. They have, where possible, a docking station or an external monitor, because that can really help put the boundary around your workstation and your home station. So those are kind of some of the initial things. Then creating those boundaries around your work time versus your home time. So I know a lot of people find if you've got a wife and kids running around, that can kind of distract you from your day job. Having a designated workspace is one thing while your kids are doing their schoolwork, but then at the end of the day, sort of having a clock off time so that you can sit down and spend time with family and make sure you've got that appropriate work-life balance, because that's really important that everybody's doing the best they can, but at the same time not neglecting their home life. And we know that right now everybody's really kind of concerned about their health and well-being, and we want to make sure that our employees are looking after themselves. Some of the other things that we've been thinking about are the distractions. We know that everybody's been really kind of considerate about those people that do have distractions. Some people have had to take some time to look after loved ones who might have been suffering with ill health, and we've obviously tried to kind of be compassionate with our employees. We've been checking in on anyone affected by the pandemic, and obviously making sure that they've got the flexibility to look after those people in their lives. And then there's been the new kind of, aside from the health and well-being side, there have been the new challenges that have been born out of this time with regards to we're now having to learn how to work in a whole different way. So some people enjoy working from home, other people don't. Some people are finding it challenging to kind of put boundaries around their work, get work done, be as productive as usual. So everyone on this call has obviously got teams that work for them. So we've been kind of helping with giving them advice and guidance with regards to how to get the most out of their teams and make sure everyone's productive while they're not physically with their people. Because normally in the office environment, if you've got an employee who's perhaps not working at 100% productivity, you can have a discussion with them, a one-to-one, and kind of give them coaching and feedback. Whereas in this remote environment, you don't necessarily know if somebody is 100% working and perhaps avoiding Netflix. So we're kind of having to overcome those new HR problems, but at the same time trying to retain a lot of the culture that we are proud of in Alert Logic. So making sure that we've got those fun engagements with our teams, making sure you're having those daily, weekly check-ins with your employees, making sure that you're kind of getting the kind of positives out of working in this environment. So I was on a meeting the other day with a team, and they all sat there with their funny hats on, and I had to run upstairs and grab a witch's hat because that's all I could find, the irony being in HR. And then also things like teams are having happy hours on a Friday or a quiz night. And those are the kind of things that are really bringing everyone together. So combining the kind of the well-being with the kind of the functional side of doing the work, but also the employee engagement, which is really important, as well as kind of all the other kind of day-to-day challenges that we have with dealing with our customers and everything. So there's just a bit of a rundown. I don't know if anyone's got any comments off the back of that.
Well, I know for me, it's it's quite a personal thing, isn't it? Working from home, like how you manage your own time. You're sort of driven when you're in the office and by other people's working patterns and the workload going on around you. But you definitely got to manage it in your own time. I can definitely appreciate the distractions thing. Tim, I know we've been on a few calls, and your daughter will come in asking for stuff. How is it for you personally and for your team? This kind of the human factor of them working from home and dealing with customers, obviously, as well, Derek.
Yeah, I mean, I'm very lucky that I've got such a strong team around me that have managed to settle into this quite well. We practiced a fair bit of working from home anyway. A couple of the team live a little bit outside the city, so they would quite often take a day or two working from home as normal. So the team have settled into it quite nicely. The challenges of having your daughter wander in. Well, that's it's a new one because you're tied between your two requirements of making sure that the person you're speaking to is being understood and feeling like they're being communicated with properly, but also that your child doesn't feel too pushed out by the fact that you're not ignoring them, but trying to gently usher them out the door when you get on with the thing that you need to make sure is done. From a customer perspective, there's not been a huge amount of change to our working practice. There's been some new challenges of making sure that our customers are comfortable talking to us either via video screen or by a phone, that we're making sure that we're listening intently and correctly, and that we're really understanding the customer need and want and requirement to make sure that we're able to service them as well as we always have done. And then just ensuring that things are delivered sort of on time and in the way they're being expected. And if we've also had quite a a positive outreach program to all our customers. So we made sure that we, wherever possible, tried to physically speak to every single one of our customers over the past couple of weeks, just to make sure that our contact details are in place, that we have the right contacts, that they know who we are and where we are in all situations, and if they need to get hold of us for any reason, that they can. So if you're watching this and you're thinking my CSM hasn't been in touch, I promise you it's not for want of lack of trying, and please do contact them. They'd love to hear from you.
It's interesting when you talk about kind of work and things like that, and we're talking about work. I think that before you'd go into the office and it was time away from family, it was time away from things you need to do at work. And Andrew, you were talking about doing your DIY projects the other day, and I think part of it is now that you sort of blend your day in more, but actually going and doing your work is a nice change. You can mix things up a little bit more. For you, Andrew, how has it been? From the people perspective, you've got lots of people with different kinds of tasks on hand, right, and deadlines to deliver to.
Yeah, absolutely. I think to echo what Tim said, I think my entire team and the wider team in the States now know my daughter, because I'm pretty sure that every time she hears me on the phone, she will sneak down and pop into shots. So they all know her now, which is fine. I think that on for internal calls, that's absolutely fine, and it breaks the calls up. I think from a wide perspective, our team is used to working remotely with clients, so now we're working remotely between the team. So in that respect, I think we've all adapted fairly well. Certainly my team have all got experience of working from home with previous roles in any case. I think the discipline is there across the team. And certainly we've seen some benefits to take the positives out of this situation. We've seen that where we've got clients who are across multiple time zones or projects where our client is remote, as in a different country or different continent, then there are benefits from working from home, because we've been able to work a slip shift. So I've got one of the guys who has been working on a project in the Philippines. So she will have a call early morning with them, and then take an extended lunch break and pick up with another project which is US based, so behind the UK time zone. So it's actually worked quite well from that perspective. I think the morale within the team is pretty good, and in some respects we've had greater contact with the wider team, because we have daily stand-ups with the team. We also work closely with an engineering team within our department, so we have a daily call with them as well, and they're really something to look forward to in the working day, and even though we all sit close to one another in work, it's a far more intimate setting when we're on a call together, and it has worked out really quite well, and also the increase in formal contact between teams has changed somewhat. I think that's just the nature of working remotely. Trying to make sure we have that water cooler type chat with people from not just our team, but the wider organization. So lots of people have just been doing sort of an outreach within Alert Logic and just randomly picking someone to have a call with, and that's been quite nice. But overall, I think in terms of to echo what Tim.
Nice. You talked about water cooler chat then, and I know Phil, you when we had sort of chats.
And on the plus side, they are used to interacting with each other through remote means, because we have a team in the UK and a team in the US, and they have their ways of investing a little bit of banter and so forth. The bit that's difficult to kind of replicate is the really collaborative working environment that we have, particularly in our UK office, where they are on what we would call dog bone desks. So they're all facing each other. They can all kind of spin their monitors around and talk to each other. They can hear what people are working on and go over and offer some advice or troubleshoot a problem together. So trying to recreate that in a virtual environment has been a little challenging. Not gonna lie, but we are a team of innovators. and we have spun up a series of Teams rooms. There are some that I can see, there are some that I can't see, and I don't think I want to see, which is their kind of, their banter space. But equally making sure that they are reviewing each other's casework. They can all see which tickets people are working on. So as people might be kind of experiencing a bit of a challenge with a particularly complex issue, someone will jump in and they'll say, yeah, I can see that you're looking at this ticket and here's some stuff about this. But making sure, again, that there is some verbal communication, because written communication is great, and they have their kind of chats and their meme rooms, which is one that I can see, which is work appropriate. There you go, Ali, just to put your mind at rest. But also making sure they have the verbal communication. So we have some standing video rooms set up where people can kind of jump in, jump out. And in addition to that, we've been setting up some pub quizzes, some happy hours, just to make sure that people are still making those connections as close to a physical connection as we can possibly get. Because the human element is really important. And when we talk about working from home, and yes, we have some great business continuity planning, which we practice at very regular intervals, so the team are used to being isolated from each other in this kind of context. But when it's for an extended period, and it's so kind of stringent to the point where you can talk to the person across the road, just don't cross the road when you talk to them. It's not like you can work from home for a bit and then go down the pub, or work from home, or go get a coffee. They're very restricted in terms of what it is that they can do. And some of them are living with their families, so they get a couple more people to talk to, which is great. And some of them live on their own. So making sure that we identify those people particularly, to make sure that we are in regular contact with them and they are getting some kind of communication, not just from us, but from their colleagues as well, is really important for their mental well-being. Because, I'll put my hands up, feeling the strain a little bit some days, where, I live with my partner and we talk about the most inane things. And it's just trying to get that conversation going, making, a lot of phone calls rather than having a Teams chat with someone, trying to get someone actually on the line to have a video call, whereas normally a kind of a 2-sentence chat with them before is really, really important to make sure that we're maintaining those kind of connections with the team. But in terms of the general day-to-day banter and so forth, it's there. Trust me, it's there.
Nice. Stefan, a lot's been said, obviously, and we want to talk about this and SOC workloads and things like that. What's it like for your team? They I know, have a similar working pattern to Phil, but obviously dealing with different topics and things like that.
They do, yeah. So I think Phil covered the point, but in our SOC as well, when there's a incident that's quite interesting, or is of a certain complexity that requires maybe more senior resources to get involved and assist some of the analysts who might be triaging and analysing that incident at that moment in time. One of the challenges we've had is to try and recreate that collaboration environment through a virtual interface. So one of the things that we've done is spun up a perpetual daily meeting. So when the guys get in at 7 a.m, they're logging into this meeting, which acts as both a collaboration tool and a social tool as well, so they can talk and ask questions to each other about certain incidents that might be appearing on the board, or if there's a certain customer experience in some sort of issue, how do they get together in order to work through that. So additionally, they can always then jump out of that group call and set up a single one-to-one sort of call between those two guys or more in order to discuss that particular issue in detail. Aside from that, the human factor, as Phil said, Phil's department and mine work very closely together, so that those pub quizzes and those social events that we've been working on have been done conjointly. So trying to foster, as well as just the security and support teams, but again, being able to bring those two teams into a closer sort of collaboration and interaction, I guess, that they would normally get at the office that they're maybe not experiencing now, given our remote situation. I mean, operationally, there hasn't been a huge amount of change as far as the business or customer impact. We've been working remotely, handing work over from one shift to the other through remote technology resources for years. It's not something that's new to us. However, the local remote abilities of our staff is what has changed. So that's been, I guess, the biggest challenge to date. But as I said, we're working through it. There's been some new experiences. As Phil said earlier as well, having to initiate those calls and making sure that we're turning our webcams on. A lot of these guys, typically security conscious, don't like to show people their background, what's going on at home behind them, and maybe just suggesting that maybe they turn their webcam on and have as best you can a face-to-face conversation over a video call. So yeah, it's been interesting.
I can just imagine that one. I mean, I remember when we were doing the interviews, there was quite a few of them that just obviously wouldn't be on the videos and wouldn't be part of the interviews and things like that, but were staying well out of their way. Do you think, I mean, seeing people's faces is obviously important. And do you think it's is it something you've had to try and force them to do? Is there, or do they understand? Do you think they're sort of more security conscious people?
Yeah, I've personally, I've not had to kind of force anyone yet. And if they were that uncomfortable about it, then there's a point at which you go, okay, well let's do it in a way that's comfortable for you. It's usually I have such a relationship with the team that they kind of get where I'm coming from without me having to kind of spell it out for them a lot. They understand that because I'm as a non-technical leader, managing a group of technical resources, I need to be kind of open to the way that they need to work, and they are very respectful of the fact that sometimes I'm like, yeah, but I miss your face, so could we just and again, if they're like, I'm really uncomfortable about doing this, then okay, fine, but let's have the conversation. I'm going to keep my video on and stay kind of aimlessly at a blank screen. But trying to at least give them something different to look at other than a kind of screen full of tickets or appliance alarms or anything like that. But I've not had to kind of really push the issue. 9 times out of 10, people are really up for doing that because, again, they want a conversation with someone else other than their cat. Very much including myself in that.
Well, we saw the cat. Go on.
And I think it's similar with customers as well. I mean, we've had sort of virtual walkarounds of people's houses. We've met our customers' children, our customers' cats, our customers' dogs, and it's taking the positive again, or using sort of the positive. It's nice to have that sort of personal connection with people because they're finding similar situations themselves. They're either sort of removed from their sort of usual working environment or in situations that are abnormal for them, and I think they're enjoying the personal contact with us as well. And it's very much a two-way street. I think, like I said, taking the positive works for everyone, or we've made work as well as we can for everyone.
It's interesting. I was just imagining then some of the SOC people in there with their face in shadow with a voice obfuscator on because they don't want to be seen on camera or something like that. I don't think we've gone that far though, obviously.
No, I mean, I think the closest I've got to possibly an awkward situation was when I was getting in contact with one of the team, and we were chatting where I said, if we have a video call, and they said, can you just give me a couple of minutes? I'm like, you're gonna go put on clothes now, aren't you? These are the levels to which we've got. Go get dressed. Hit me up when you're ready.
Oh my word. That makes me cringe inside, I'm not gonna lie.
It's gonna be incredibly awkward.
Yeah. I was going to say I've had a couple of instances with employees where they're automatic dial into a caller's video on mute, and I'm quite forward and I'll be like, oh, I can't see your video, and they're like, oh sorry, talking to HR, they obviously do put their cameras on, but it, from an HR perspective, we all know the old adage of how much you pick up from the words you say versus the body language, and there's so much that you pick up through, like I'm doing it now, I'm talking with my hands, and we've all had conversations about, oh, look at your background, and kind of getting more from who you're looking at than just kind of what they're saying. It's not all about the words. So that is really important for me. And in Alert Logic anyway, we've always been really heavy with video conferencing, being a global company. I think we take it for granted, and there's a lot of companies out there that are very used to conference calling, which personally I can't stand, because I need the physical, I need to be able to see people, read the body language. And I think if there's one thing this is going to have hopefully done, is shift everyone to video conferencing being normal, because I just can't work without it, to put it bluntly. So I'm a big fan of that. The only time we've ever had any problems, and some people will probably have this issue, is the network, the amount of kind of download capacity you have. I'm sorry, not techie. But if some people have to video mute so that they can get the full bandwidth, that really takes something away from the conversation if you're on with a bunch of people. So yeah, and I just wanted to reiterate what Andrew had said earlier about being in a lot more meetings, because we're not having those little chats anymore. You are finding that you're booking in half an hour here, half an hour there to talk something through, rather than getting lost in email pain, because otherwise they just go around in circles. So yeah.
It's very interesting stuff. I think, being a human, it's interesting, I think, to me, especially because security is a human challenge, right? It's not a sort of technology one necessarily, but, and sort of facing this challenge we've got now being a very human one. We could probably talk about this for the whole sort of hour or so, but something Stefan and Phil have probably got more of an eye on than maybe the others, as far as the workload in the SOC and the workload in support. Stefan, have you seen much of a change as far as the amount of incidents, the amount of events, the amount of issues that your guys are dealing with? Is there much impact there from
No, not typically. We have a small subset of signatures targeted specifically at COVID-related phishing attempts, so we've been able to identify outbound connections to known domains that are maybe C2 servers for these sort of threats. But genuinely, we haven't observed as much of a uptick in that sort of activity as the industry would suggest, given the volume of phishing emails I'm sure everybody both on this call and listening is experiencing right now. I know my personal email accounts are blowing up with COVID-19 awareness emails from both legitimate and illegitimate sources. So, but generally, no, the workload has remained consistent. As I said earlier, the business impact has not been severe in terms of the shift for moving everybody remotely. I feel like we've been able to deal with that move extremely well. We acted very, very early with regard to moving people remotely. And we've also been working heavily as well, myself, Phil, and our peers in the US on our BCP planning as well, and ensure that we have appropriate plans in place given the technology. Should we experience both infrastructure problems or issues over the coming weeks or months, as well as staffing issues as well. So should we lose a percentage of our staff to illness, what is our playbook going to be for responding to those types of scenarios?
Yeah, certainly from a support perspective, we've not seen any decrease in our interaction with customers. Happily keeping us as busy as always, which I was expecting to see maybe a downturn as people readjusted, and we did see a blip sort of around the third week of March, where customers were kind of repositioning themselves to either work remotely or to put some other kind of measures in place, and then that's ramped straight back up again. So it's absolutely usual. I mean, to Steph's point, we acted very, very early, so we were able to carry out a phased approach to getting people working remotely, which meant that they had all the equipment that they needed. They were able to take docking stations, monitors, keyboards, mice, and so forth from the office and get those set up, and we were able to make sure that they were set up before we kind of asked them to start working. And also leveraging our colleagues in the US then as well to add a little bit of coverage, and then we picked up to allow them to start setting up to work remotely. So we were 100% operational from day one of working from home, which, you know, I hope has given our customers some level of confidence in the fact that, you know, we mean business with this. One of the talking points that I had with the team was around the fact that, as Steph said, phishing attempts have increased, particularly in respect of COVID-19. Our customers are going to be equally as vulnerable, whether they're working remote or we're working remote or everyone's working remote. But in terms of the service that we offer, they're going to have to get through us. And that has not changed since we have adopted these new working patterns. So the team have been doing an outstanding job in terms of making sure that the service that we're giving to our customers hasn't changed in any way. They're still getting the same excellent level of service that they're getting from the support analysts. They're getting the excellent level of security support from our security analysts. And you know, they really have gone above and beyond in making sure that our customers don't notice any kind of difference as far as the service that we're providing goes.
One interesting statistic, actually, given is not really service related, but one of the things that we have identified over the period of ourselves and most of our customers moving remotely as well is we've seen a 40% uptick in the deployments of our extended endpoint protection agent. So it seems like a lot of our customers are utilizing that product to sort of secure their endpoint laptops and other devices, etc., for remote working, which is awesome for us.
That is good. For those of you listening who don't know, so the extended endpoint we offer basically a machine learning agent that sits on top of Windows or Mac and will monitor for unusual activities. So that's going to hopefully pick up and block anything that's kind of malicious that maybe hasn't got a signature from an AV tool or something like that. So yeah, super interesting. I mean, I feel like, you know, we've talked about that. We've managed to maintain some business as usual. Someone used that phrase earlier. And I've been feeling like we were looking at the statistics, our sort of incident counts, event counts, and I'm sort of expecting to see some change, whether that was up or down. Now, there's obviously been a shift. People are refocusing because it's an opportunity. But I've been using the phrase that it's business as usual for the attackers as well. Most of them were working from home anyway, even if they were part of some hacker group, they would have been distributed. They would have been working from home in effect anyway. So I think that explains why we really haven't seen a big shift in that threat landscape, which was really interesting to me. I spent a lot of my time talking about threat landscape and things like that and changes. But it's good to know that fundamentally, you know, it hasn't really impacted the working of the SOC, right? I think that's the main thing for us. We've got to maintain the triage, the investigation into incidents. So it's good to hear that. We've talked a lot about technology generally, obviously video conferencing. I don't know if Andrew or Phil or someone, if you want to talk, maybe Andrew, haven't talked for a little bit. If you want to, what kind of technology has made your lives easier? I guess we were already using a lot of tools, but if you had to use them in a different way.
Yeah, we're using it right now. We're coming to you through our company Teams channel. So lots of people have said about Teams. So I think the number of channels on our Teams, our company Teams, has probably quadrupled. But it has been really, really useful. We were getting to grips with Teams from moving across from a different provider anyway. But I think it's kind of stood the test of these current times. I mean, I even use my mobile phone a lot, has to be said. And, you know, just to echo what everyone else has said, we've done video conferencing on a lot of our calls, and whilst you can't mandate it, we've really encouraged that face-to-face use of Teams, and also again with our clients, we always use Ring Central or Teams, and both those facilities allow for video conferencing. So we do start our calls with the video conference enabled, and if people feel like joining, then that's great. I think it does give a different vibe to a call. And it does make it more meaningful in terms of that interaction. I think email, I've had a lot of email since this, I've been working from home as well. That has gone up quite a bit, and we all have too much email. So if people want to send one less email a day, I think that might help. But I don't know that our general working environment has changed, but the job hasn't changed at all. We're still trying to get our customers to the value of their services as quickly as possible. So we're still running to catch up with all our customers' demands. And in the main, we appear to be doing that based on all the stats that we gather and monitor on a day-to-day basis. So in terms of the tool set, I think the company provides us the tools we need to do our job. And I'm talking to a neighbour of mine, and basically I could do my job from the moon as long as I had a Wi-Fi connection. And breathing apparatus, obviously, but it's fine so far. All good.
Good stuff, Phil. I mean, you guys must use some tools and technologies, I suppose, but I guess it's kind of same message, right? Business as usual, or have you had to increase your use of ITSM tooling and things like that in this state?
No, I mean it's been literally been business as usual for us. Some of the tools that we use are cloud-based, so there's no change there. For software applications which are hosted on our physical infrastructure or in our kind of cloud infrastructure, there has been no change there. It's the only real increase has been in the increase in use of Teams, because people can't kind of lean across the desk and talk to each other. It's that hey, you got a minute, kind of thing. And just dialing back a little bit to something that Eddie was talking about earlier, where it's the importance of having that kind of physical connection where you can actually see what someone's doing as they're talking to you. The team have adapted well to having those kind of quick sidebar conversations as text conversations without taking umbrage if someone has said something in such a way that someone may take offense because the offense was not intended. They just forgot to put a smiley face at the end of it. So and I suppose in that the use of memes and emoticons has also increased exponentially because sometimes a meme will paint a picture of what the phrase is.
Yeah, it's a good point. I like that, we're showing our ages, aren't we? Talking about emoticons instead of emojis, but I much prefer that word. That's what they're supposed to be.
I prefer an emoticon. It sounds more futuristic.
Yeah, and I'm sure someone will tell me they're different or something later on offline. Stefan, I'm going to come back to you because, I was thinking about the SOC, and obviously I spend a reasonable amount of time there, and you've got this big head-up display at the front with all the incidents on and lots of data and these screens everywhere up on the ceiling that people can look at. How's that impacted people? How are they able to do that at home? I suppose a lot of them techies anyway, so they've probably got 50 screens, but what's it like for people, do you know?
So funny. Well, some of the photos I've seen of some of these guys' home setup is unbelievable. I know where they're spending their money. That's all I can say. But yeah, it's absolutely different. I mean, everybody has what we call the HUD or the heads-up display available on one of their monitors. Obviously, when we moved remotely, I think Phil talked about it earlier, we allowed people to take some of those resources home to enable them to work at home remotely as they would were they at the office, bar for the obvious difference in location. So they have the tools available to them in order to do their job as they would at the office. I guess the difference for me personally and my team of leaders is whereas we're typically sat in the middle of that environment and able to see what's going on and overhear what's going on as well. So the conversation between analysts over what incidents are happening or what leads we need to run down on an active investigation or whatever it might be. We're now having to rely on people or trust people to do what they need to be doing, as Ali talked about earlier, and keeping an eye more on our visual dashboards and metrics as well. Just making sure that our performance is in the area where it needs to be, and I'm thankful to say largely it has been. So yeah, that's the change that I've seen significantly. I know the analysts are experiencing that differently as well, and that's for the reason that we set up that perpetual meeting. So when one analyst maybe has to go away and take a break, or maybe they have to care for a loved one or a child that needs some home educating, we can allow them that flexibility to go and do that, whilst also having coverage to enable us to respond to those incoming alerts that are firing up on the HUD every 30 seconds or so. So yeah.
Nice.
Those are the big changes.
I wondered then, with some mix of home education and then working incidents, whether we'll get some new junior analysts out of this from people. Someone with some interest in the subject anyway might be interesting, I suppose. Getting their work life exposed to kids is always a good thing, I think.
Yeah.
Nice. One of the subjects we were going to talk about was unexpected things. I mean, we've talked about BCP, and obviously we had some planning. But Ellie, do you want to start? What was it like as far as planning going into this situation from your side of things?
Yeah, so we do BCP planning as an organisation. So, and most of the people in this call have kind of gone through that. But it's generally for the more short-term incidents, kind of if there's a gas leak in the building and we have to vacate. So this is been more trying because of the longevity of it. So we obviously realised that this was going to become a bigger issue, and I think we sent everybody home earlier than a lot of businesses, and we're quite fortunate to be able to work remotely, so that's kind of been really helpful. But it has been those first kind of couple of weeks before the UK was put into lockdown was a bit of trial and error, some people having to go back into the offices because they didn't have a docking station or a monitor, and trying to make sure that our employees' well-being was at the forefront of everything. So we as a business locked down our offices, and you had to request access to go and get those things. And we wanted to make sure that we were logging who was going in, and we keep a log of anybody that's displaying any symptoms of the pandemic and everything like that, so that we can make sure that we're kind of doing our due diligence. But some of the kind of things that we've been hit with from a HR and kind of a more functional support perspective is it's been business as usual. Everyone is carrying on, and we're really lucky for that. But we have offers going out to new hires every week, and we have new hires lined up to come in over the next several weeks. And the day that we got told that's it, everyone's going to be working from home, we were like, right, we've got 3 people starting on Monday. How are we going to logistically get them their laptops, get them their access? And we had to put all heads together to try and come up with the plan of how we were going to maintain our onboarding for new people coming into the company when they're going to be missing a massive element which we really pride ourselves on, which is that physical interaction, being in the office, being in the culture. So we kind of had to change it around a little bit so that we could get their laptops all set up and shipped out to them, and they could speak to me and go through all of the kind of the day one induction that we do with everyone, and then obviously planning in lunch breaks for them because they're brand new and they don't know what to expect. And if they were physically with us, we would be like, right, you're going to go off and have lunch now with your team, and you're going to meet your manager and get to know everyone. But we're having to put those things in. So from my perspective, there have been kind of curveballs with trying to do the logistics of that, and not only new hires, but people people leaving as well. That's been quite surprising. People continuing to get new jobs and leaving. We're coordinating getting kit back and making sure their exit from the business is smooth. So they're kind of some of the unexpected things that I had to deal with. But for the rest of the guys, obviously, slightly different, I'd imagine.
Yeah, I don't know, Andrew, you haven't spoken for a little bit. Was there anything unexpected for you guys? Was it sort of, did you carry on as normal? Was there no change?
Pretty much. One unexpected thing for me, and I'm feeling it right now, is being so damn cold all the time. I'm in my basement and it's damn chilly down here. Also, ridiculously, that I've got a desk set up and it's more of a workbench than a desk, so it's a bit higher than a normal desk, which means I've had to build myself a little podium to lift myself up. I perched on the end of my chair, and I realised it was because my arm was raised higher than it would be normally, so it wasn't getting enough blood to it. So my mouse hand is cold all the time. It's ridiculous. So this is the longest I've been sitting in one place for quite a while now, because usually I get up and have a little run around. But no, on a more serious note, just that immediacy in the interaction between the team. So shouting across the table to a colleague, asking them a question, rather than being a 5-10 second interaction, it turns into a bit more of a mission, because you've got to get a form of words together, and it's much more complicated trying to explain something in written format than, as Ali was saying, gesticulating. So that's been a little more challenging, but I think in the long run that can actually be turned into, again, a positive, because it makes people think a little more carefully about how they phrase things and how they ask a question, and it is more difficult to ask a question in written format certainly than verbally, and equally providing an answer to that. You've got to try and unpick what an individual is actually asking in amongst what they've typed, that's been, I've certainly found that a little more challenging. But the workaround for that is just get on Teams or get on a call and have a face-to-face. So certainly nothing insurmountable.
That's interesting. You talked about positives then, and we've had a few positives come out. Tim, what about with your interactions or your team's interactions with our customers? Have there been significant kind of positives that have come out of that, or anything that you've seen or unexpected?
Yeah, nothing too unexpected. The feedback from the customers was similar to as we discussed. A lot of what we've said has echoed directly into customers. The first week or so was getting used to the new situation, making sure that all the pieces of their business had the right information and the right level of support, and obviously we were an important part of that, so making sure that we dovetailed correctly with those customer needs. And then now, as we start to move forward, we're looking at our business as usual services for them, just delivering it in a slightly different way. So making sure that different people within the teams understand a little bit more about how to use the UI, making sure that they have the value reports that they look to us to deliver, and make sure that we're communicating the nuances of those that perhaps we might have done face to face in a slightly different way through either Teams, Ring Central, or a customer's own video conferencing software, making sure that where they need to contact different people within the business, that we can line those resources up for them and make sure that their requirements or their needs or their wants are understood. So it's been very interesting to watch us move from reactive to customer needs to business as usual, but being able to take that forward. And I think the real positivity will be how much more we can do, or how much more we can do in the future with the resources that we have available to us, and perhaps how much more we can communicate with more customers than maybe we assumed we could in the past. And from my team, I haven't really got any funny stories, sorry. I mean, they're quite good guys. They've not really managed to throw anything crazy curveball at me. So yeah, no,
I can help you with that, Tim.
Please do, feel free. Is it my team that have provided you with an interesting story and not me?
No, I'm only joking.
Maybe
Compromise you like that.
maybe they've got a separate chat room like Phil's guys that you're not privy to where they're having all of those funny interactions. And I think it's interesting. They say a change is as good as a rest, don't they? And I'm not sure that's appropriate in this current climate. That maybe the changes that we're all having to deal with to do our work and to get on with our lives will have a positive impact in the end from an empathy and sort of interaction and working pattern point of view going forward, or we'll all just go straight back to normal afterwards and chucking things across the desks at people. I don't know. What about Stefan in the SOC, sort of working on incidents? You talked about having that room open. Do you think there's been an increase in collaboration? Like it's a bit more open, what everyone's talking about, if you've got that permanent room?
I wouldn't say there's necessarily been an increase in collaboration. I think it's just replicating what we have at the office typically. The one unexpected and both positive as well that I have been able to observe is, as Ali was talking about earlier, we have had a couple of new hires join the team in recent weeks, and this is the first time we've ever had to sort of give people their onboarding training entirely remotely. So typically that process is usually like a 8 to 12 week training program that we deliver in the office, where they can do both instructor-led sessions, shadowing with more senior analysts so they can pick up the tips, techniques they need in order to analyze certain incident types. All of that now has to be done over Teams calls or through Ring Central meetings or whatever it may be. And I'm really, really pleased to see how well we've adapted to that. So it's been a real positive for me.
Good. Okay, we're sort of getting close to time, I'd say. Has anyone else got anything they wanted to add on any of these subjects, or we can call it then because we're probably close to the hour?
I'm going to chime in just while I was listening to everybody's comments. It was really nice to hear all the positives coming out of it. And Andrew mentioned how we've got lots of chat rooms in Teams, and we've been seeing people's desk setups, people's gardens, what the weather's like, because we're an international company. Obviously, it's nice to see the weather in Cali by comparison to Cardiff. So it's usually kind of a bit jealous, kind of in getting everyone kind of a bit jealous with that. But one of the things I just wanted to add was, I think a lot of the more senior stakeholders in the business are used to working remotely. And one thing I've noticed is, having worked with the US in a remote capacity for 5.5 years, it comes naturally to have a meeting like this with you guys. Obviously, the US office is bigger than ours, so you've kind of noticed that since they've been working from home, they're trying to get used to working in this environment as well, because they're not in a big office surrounded with everyone, with just us dialed in. So that's been quite an interesting change for us. But overall, the one thing I wanted to sort of throw in is the company's done a lot for its employees, like sending out communications every week, which I think I've heard of friends who've worked in companies where they've had nothing. So I think the company's tried to do what it can to help keep its employees informed, and also kind of give them resources if they're feeling stressed and anxious. And from my perspective, obviously making sure if employees have got worries, whether it's anxiety, stress about the pandemic itself or financial concerns, that we're constantly reiterating where they can go for support and help, because obviously we've got various benefits and employee assistance programs. But it's really been great to see that within our company, and I think lots of other companies have kind of put that at the forefront as well, which has been really nice.
Brilliant. I think that's a fantastic point to end it on. So yeah, thank you everyone on the call. Thank you for those watching. It's been nice to have this chat for me. I hope it's been interesting for everyone. You can check out we've got a page that talks and with some resources on about COVID-19 on our website at alertlogic.com. As I said, there's other videos on this channel from people who work for us if you want to hear a little bit more about people's jobs within AlertLogic. But thank you very much, and I hope this has been good for everyone.
Thanks. Bye.
Thanks all. Bye.